No surprise here. Various McDonald's are hiring 10-year-olds. Um, Corporations love the use of child labor because they can start milking the labor out of people as soon as possible.
The U.S. Department of Labor announced penalties for McDonald's, the fast food franchise, after two 10-year-olds were found working until 10 a.m. at a McDonald's in Louisville, Kentucky, violating numerous prohibitions on child labor and safety, according to the Department of Labor.
Wasn't it also Kentucky that got caught having 14-year-old migrant workers in meatpacking plants? Yeah. And then what? After that, there has been various Republicans trying to pass laws to allow 14-year-olds and younger to work in these various places, as well as like mines and stuff, with no safety regulations whatsoever.
What do you think, Jessica?
Sounds like a McLabor violation to me, Robbie. Listen, I know you want the children to toil at a hot grill.
Oh, you're anticipating my remarks.
And then potentially, you're right, they can toil at the hot grill and then conveniently play in the McDonald's playground during their break. It's a perfect setup.
Sounds fun to me.
It's almost like they've been anticipating this for quite some time. I don't think this is...
Wow, is this guy being serious? That sounds fun to me. He seriously would have hated being forced to work at a McDonald's as a 10-year-old. And whatever happened to right when you were saying that, kids should be kids and be allowed to be kids and have fun and stuff. But a lot of them really love the idea of forcing kids to work.
Is an appropriate thing for a child to be doing. It's going to hurt their development, Robbie. They have a lot of things to learn at such a young age. They can't be doing customer service jobs and grilling burgers. It's absurd.
Okay. I will try to approach this with some seriousness. I do think that 10 is a little young for a part-time job.
Okay.
And
what is 10 and a half old enough to start working?
2 a.m. is way too late for a 10-year-old. And the whole buy the burners or whatever, you have a stove in your house. I don't know, this doesn't seem particularly dangerous to me.
Wow, you got a stove in your house, so it's okay for 10-year-olds to be working for McDonald's. What kind of logic is that? That's dumb.
But does it seem like an appropriate task for a 10-year-old? I would say maybe not, although again, I would leave that to the parents' discretion and the actual child and the actual restaurant in question. Not really any of my...
Well, I would leave that up to the child and the restaurant and the parents. Okay, so it's this guy thinks it's okay for 10-year-olds to be able to decide to work at whatever job that they want, but they're not old enough to make other decisions about themselves. It's crazy how on one hand, right wingers think it's okay for kids to be working at dangerous jobs and stuff, because for 10-year-olds working at places like this is definitely not it's not going to be safe. And then when you find out that they have 10-year-olds and 14-year-olds and stuff working at even more dangerous places, it's pretty wild.
My business, but no. But I don't know. What do you think is the minimum age you should be able to work at McDonald's?
I think in many states 15, where it is right now, should not go below
13 sounds good to me.
I think that's far too young. And
wow, 13? No. Minors shouldn't be working whatsoever. In my opinion, it should be 18, where people are required to work, because as all throughout that until then, you're not fully developed. Your brain isn't fully developed, and you shouldn't be required or be forced into labor until you're a fully functioning adult.
the problem with this, it's under the discretion of the parents, right? We can address this with seriousness. The parents, unfortunately, are living in the United States where Jerome Powell is the chairman of the Federal Reserve and has decided it is the mission of the Federal Reserve to increase unemployment numbers. That is really bad for working people in the United States of America. It is probably difficult for their parents to keep work and put food on the table if they're willing to let their 10-year-old work at McDonald's until 2 a.m. I don't think any parent makes this decision for.
Okay, that just shows the dysfunction in our society. If people, if people's only option is forcing their kids to work, their 10-year-old kids to work in order to provide food on the table, that means people aren't getting paid enough in order to, buy food. So there's definitely means there's an extreme change that needs to happen. We need to start forcing rich people to start paying more taxes and forcing corporations to start paying higher wages.
For any reason other than financial necessity.
That might be the case, and that's sad and unfortunate. We should talk about, what social safety nets are in place to guard against that. I just don't think. I don't think children working, having part-time jobs, is a calamity. In fact, it used to be quite standard, quite normal.
Yeah, it used to be standard where, kids were forced to work in mines and stuff. And you know what would happen? They would die early or become disabled early. And the employers didn't care. They would just hire more kids because it was easy. Then people fought against that because it was cruel. And now right-wingers are like, yeah, let's force kids to work in the mine again. We need more jobs and more workers. It's messed up. Okay, we have adults looking to migrate into the United States to fulfill jobs. But instead of letting these people in because they're brown, right-wingers are like, yeah, let's force kids to work.
It shouldn't take the place of school, absolutely not. But a summer job, a weekend job, not at 10, but when you're getting to the high school level, that can be character building, has responsibility, getting your own source of income.
Okay, yeah. I mean, decent for high school. They do have, uh, work classes and stuff in schools to get people accustomed to working. I still don't think, high schoolers should be required to be looking for jobs while also, being required to do schoolwork and stuff. And, schools still give lots of homework to students, so you got to spend hours after school doing homework and then several hours doing schoolwork, and then you have, clubs and stuff to do. And this, in my opinion, just seems to be a little too much to put on, students for pretty much no reason. And then if you're also expecting 10-year-olds to do this, that's just even crazier.
Instead of, you don't have to be doing that. My view is you have to be doing something. If a kid is really into their studies and has a lot of extracurricular activities, should they have to work? No. If they're not on a team or a club or something and they just have tons of free time to possibly fall into antisocial and ungood behavior, then a job is a great thing to build character and build responsibility.
Wow. So the only way to get out of being forced into a job is to have extracurricular activities, because too much free time means kids fall into antisocial behaviors. That's hilarious. So what, kids shouldn't be able to, go down to the park and just have fun or go to a lake or do whatever, or just chill and relax and not have to worry about, how many burgers they're going to be able to make that day. That is just wild. And he wants kids to work on the weekends, their days off. Like, why?
So that's fine. One of those, we have bands of marauding teenagers in cities that are responsible, especially because of and following the pandemic, who are responsible for a vast amount of the increases in crime, carjacking type.
Wow, yeah, these mystery roving bands of teenagers wreaking havoc across the nation.
Situation, little robberies, those things are so much less likely to happen if those people are again. It doesn't have to be a job, but you could be working, or you could be on a team, or you could be doing something. You've got to get, especially young men, especially teenage men. They need to be doing something productive with their time so that they're not robbing us.
Well, we have to force kids to work. Otherwise, they're going to be robbing the adults. Because that's what kids do. Rob adults when they have free time. Wow, this guy is paranoid to the extreme.
Right. And the thing about
Not the 10-year-olds.
right.
A little older.
The thing about that, we've
Oh, okay. The 10-year-olds aren't robbing us. It's just ones that are a little bit older.
created a world where if you go outside, what is there to do if you're a young kid, if you're a young person? If your family is struggling to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads, home is probably not a place you want to be. Also, if your pathway to actually getting some money and supporting yourself and maybe your family is through organized crime, and that's the decision you face, that's a difficult one. Is the alternative
Very bad.
Wow, she kinda understands poverty and people being forced into gangs and criminal activity in order to survive. That is pretty surprising.
at McDonald's? I would say
Well,
that's
fine.
a sad world when all you can do is work in your free time. Like, that's not a world I want to live in. Children are very absorbent of the information and world around them. Should they be working in a place like McDonald's and doing this kind of labor that is customer service?
Place like McDonald's. It's a fine. I don't know if you've been in one recently, but it's a fine place to. There's nothing insulting or undignified about it, especially for a kid. I mean,
Well, this guy is so he lacks any compassion whatsoever, and empathy because he like yeah, it's definitely a sad world if you're a 10-year-old and you gotta work in order to help provide for your family, or you even worry about not your family not having enough money to, be able to live. And this guy is like, oh yeah, McDonald's is totally fine. Have you seen it nowadays? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with 10-year-olds working at McDonald's in order to be able to support their parents and their family and themselves. It's like that's crazy. Kids shouldn't be worried about that or even thinking about, you know, how they're going to, eat the next day. Nor should they be, working at a McDonald's on their free time whatsoever. Kids should be able to just do whatever and be kids and tell their adults.
flipping burgers for a summer job used to be like a American staple. It's a cliche, right?
If you're older than certainly 10 years old,
Okay,
I think
10,
13
fine.
is also too young, Robbie. I think instead of some McDonald's, probably you shouldn't be working at all. You should be absorbing information about the world. You should be learning things. You should be making friendships. You should be developing
Working is
psychologically.
learning. It's learning, but useful.
And
Wow, it is wild how this dude thinks only working is like the only way to be productive in society and everything else is just a waste of time. This guy is truly trash. The lady here is actually pretty reasonable on this, and this dude is honestly annoyed with her response. Yeah, you can tell.
I think it's important to note one fact about the story that the 10-year-olds were not being paid. That is very
then
shocking.
They should sue this McDonald's.
Whoa, the 10-year-olds weren't even being paid? So this guy's argument at the moment is basically blown out the water because he's acting like these kids are working and being paid, but no, they're not being paid. Wow. So they're being used as slave labor, and that is truly horrifying.
Yes, that is a big McLabor violation, I would
Well,
say.
okay, if they're not being paid and they're 10, and I don't see that in this story, but then it's okay. Then that's akin to like I mean, that's now we're getting into like a child slavery aspect of it. Yes, that is not appropriate at all. Of course, they should be paid.
Oh, wow. Surprising that he didn't support them being unpaid child slavery, and supports them being paid. Yeah, this McDonald's needs to be sued, and these people need to be thrown in jail for slavery.
Let's also keep in mind, right? There's child labor is a huge reality in the United States, in Hollywood. So many children are doing work. I don't believe in that either. I really don't believe in having child actors. I think it's unfair to subject a child to that decision.
Do you want 30-year-olds playing high school teens like in all those terrible dramas where you can tell, like, that's not a kid?
I just don't think we need children to be in movies like that. Like, I really don't. Like, I think we could do without it. Even children's TV shows like Barney and such, like so many kids to be on camera all day long, you're impressionable in that environment as well. It's not just, McDonald's. At least McDonald's has a playground. I don't know if they have playgrounds on those Hollywood sets, Robbie.
McDonald's has some really fun playgrounds, but people tell me I'm too old for them now, so
Robbie gets kicked out of them on a frequent basis. That's why he's a libertarian.
No.
Everyone should be
Wow, that's kind of a loud joke to make there.
able to use the McDonald's playground.
That's why my pictures in the McDonald's don't serve this customer, sadly.
But this is disgusting.
Wow, because what, he's after children?
And unfortunately a trend in the country that we're seeing child labor.
Yes, we're seeing a lot of rollbacks. Arkansas let it, but again, I don't think this is sad. I think it's fine. Not in all cases. Not if it's the parents are forcing it on them and stealing their money or something.
Wow, how many 10-year-olds are choosing to work at McDonald's? How many 14-year-olds migrants are honestly like truly choosing to work at like unsafe meatpacking plants and stuff like that? And 14-year-olds would not be choosing that if they actually had other options. It's wild how this dude is trying to spin it as it's something good to have kids working instead of actually enjoying life and being kids.
But it doesn't have to be work, but we need to distract young people, especially boys, from falling down bad pathways. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I don't think labor and a job is the option.
But school is not the right, like learning.
Yeah, we need more recreation activities in cities for people to go do. Studies show that the more recreation people have, the less likely they're going to do drugs. There was a study with mice. They gave a mouse water laced with drugs and nothing else to do. It killed itself by drinking water, the drug-laced water, the entire time, because it had nothing else to do. But, there was a control of regular water. But when they put in a running wheel, the mouse ran on the running wheel and drank the unlaced water. It had something to do, so it didn't do anything. It didn't decide to do drugs the entire time because it had another form of entertainment. It shows that the more recreation that there is in society for people to do, the less likely they will use drugs and stuff because they have other forms of a dopamine release and the such.
School is miserable for a lot of kids. A lot of kids don't have this thirst for knowledge and like.
I'm not saying put them in school the whole time either, Robbie. I'm saying
put me in math class or put me in the
world.
teenage mafia. I'll join the teenage mafia. Like, it's just this idea that school and learning and just more school is the right fit for everyone is, I think, part of the entire crisis we face. Like,
well, yeah, that is a point taken there too as well. You can't just force kids to be doing school all the time. Kids need a variety of recreation and structure and stuff in order to properly develop, which means an adequate amount of resources for the families in order to be able to provide this for the kids. And if we as a society really want people to have more kids and stuff, we need to fund better schooling, better recreation, community recreation in cities and the such for kids to be able to enjoy and be able to educate themselves better.
No. Just that everybody has to go to college, and then everybody has to go to college, so then everybody has to get a master's degree, and we're just like delaying adulthood until you're 28 and in horrendous debt, and we're not like improving anyone.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, well then, let's make college free so that people can go to college and not be in debt, and it's not delaying adulthood to get a college education.
We can have the imagination to say the two options are not school and McDonald's or school and get a job and work. I think we can imagine a world where children have many other things to do that enrich them. Maybe they'll learn a skill, right? Maybe it's not just schooling and a pathway to graduate school.
Well, learning a skill is kind of job-like. That's kind of.
Well, this chick is way too reasonable to be on this YouTube channel. She needs to move away from the right wing. She's definitely more so, she's a lot closer to the left.
Kind of job adjacent.
I went to trade school and it was not labor. No one was making money off of what I was doing there. And I think that's the difference. It doesn't have to produce anything of economic value to anyone else for it to be worth investing in for our children to be doing.